Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the FIDE Candidates 2022. 8 players, 14 rounds, and after 11 of them, Jan Nepomniachtchi leads the event with 8 points. He is trailed by a couple of people with 6, 5.5, and beyond, but one man in particular is trailing him by only 1.5 points, and that is Ding Liren of China, who has caught fire and has won his last 3 rounds. Today, we are going to see a couple of things. First and foremost, you are going to see if Hikaru will play for a win with the black pieces versus Jan. If that happens, everything is all over the place. Ding Liren is going to try to beat Timur Rajabov to get a 4-game winning streak going and absolutely go scorched earth and try to make a run to win the entire event. But let's also not forget that second place could be a thing, because Magnus Carlsen has been quoted as saying that he isn't as interested in defending the title this time around, and we know, we're going to see what happens. So Jan Hikaru kick off our recap, and this was a completely unbelievable game of chess. It began with e4. Jan goes back after playing Timur yesterday and playing the move d4, or 2 days ago. e4, Hikaru plays his trusty king's pawn and knight c6, and Jan against Ding Liren played a 4-knight scotch. I think that he goes bishop b5 against Hikaru because Hikaru likes the Berlin. And he's played the Berlin kind of exclusively, and in this event, nobody's really played into the Berlin, right? Against Ding Liren, this did not happen because Ding Liren is a classical player, and he might also play for an Arkhangelsk or whatever. But after knight f6, Jan Nepomniachtchi castled. This is the first time in this event that the Berlin defense and potentially the Berlin endgame is on the board after the move d4. Knight d6 leads to bishop c6, dc6, de5, and this endgame, which became ever so popular after the 2000 World Championship match between Garry Kasparov and Vladimir Kramnik. But there is one more line here other than taking this, and it's giving away the bishop on b5 entirely. And the point is that the knight is trapped. And after black gives it back away on d4, black regains control of the center with the move d5. And it is quite well known that here the players shuffle the queens back and forth and make a draw. Yes, the first game of the round ended in about 7 minutes. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. As a spectator of the game, and just keeping in mind, like, logic aside, this was extremely disappointing. I get it, right? But as a spectator, I wanted to see an insane game. Here's the problem with that, all right? And a lot of people were mad. A lot of people were saying insulting things. Here's the truth. When you're playing black at the highest level of chess and your opponent wants to make a draw with white, it's very difficult to avoid that with black. It's very difficult to avoid that because what do you want Hikaru to do? Do you want him to play the Scandinavian defense, right? Like, do you want him to play the Sicilian, right? But Hikaru doesn't really play the Sicilians nowadays. And, like, what is he going to do? I mean, like, is he just going to make up is he going to play the accelerated dragon? You get what I'm saying? To avoid a draw with black, you have to take massive risk. And if you're not extremely well prepared, you'll get a bad position. And even if you are extremely well prepared, you might get a bad position. So rather than doing that, Hikaru saw, is this guy going to play like this? And, he, like white played for the draw here at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, Nepo could have played the endgame, but he, again, like, Hikaru could have played a sideline of the Rui. He could have played, a6 and d6 and tried to play for bishop d7. But this is not in his prep. This is not his main repertoire. Why is he learning something just to not make the draw? You get what I'm saying? So, as a spectator, you absolutely hate to see it. But the wishful thinking element here is a bit like, what do you want Hikaru to do? You want him to play some insane line and beat Jan? What happens when he plays the insane line because we all want it and he loses in 25 moves? Then he's like, oh my god, another guy throwing to Jan. It's not easy. I get it, but as a spectator, I hate it. I'm gonna be honest. As a spectator, I really hate it. But what do that's just how it works. And so Jan is now going to await what happens in some of the other games. Let's take a look at some of the other games. So Duda did not get a second parentheses. Duda's 2750, 4.5 points. But I, unfortunately, did not give the man a second parentheses, right? He should have a parentheses over here. Here we go. Let's give the man what he deserves. I had a feeling this was going to be a scrap. Like, I had a feeling both these guys want to win, and they're going to take some risks. And from the opening, they got a Semislav, a Miran Semislav. This is just an extremely popular opening. I mean, Black relies on the light squared bishop moving, taking on c4, and then playing b5. This is the Miran. This in the late 1980s and like all of the 1990s and in the early 2000s, this was like super popular. I mean, all the top guys played it. I mean, Anand, Kramnik, I think Topalov, I think, did I say Anand? I think I said Anand, like Shirov, like I think all these guys, it's just insane. Gelfand, all of them at some point or another played this completely insane theory where Black goes here, tries to play this. But nowadays it's much more common for White to kind of avoid those complications. And yeah, I mean, this is a much more peaceful version. You'll notice that nothing has really happened in the center. And the idea of bishop e2 is that if Black captures on c4 right away, White actually doesn't have to take back. There is this bonus line potentially of a4, which prevents b5 completely, and then you can play something like knight d2 and try to play for knight c4, hitting the bishop. Now, you know, this is like a general idea. For example, you can do that when the bishop is on e2. But yeah, queen c2 is a little bit less confrontational. You still see kind of the same ideas being implemented here. And after a3, the players for like the first 18 moves of this game followed, the first like 14 moves of this game followed the top line of the database. This was seen hundreds of times. A5, Black trying to instigate and take space on the queen side. White attacks in the middle. Black responds in the middle. This has been seen hundreds of times. DE, knight e5, knight e5, bishop e5, h3. h3 prevents any sort of Greek gifting. What I mean by that is, like, for example, if you play bishop 2e3, then you're not going to Greek gift immediately because White will not go to g1 and probably get mated, although there is bishop f4. White can also even go here, and believe it or not, the king actually just kicks out the knight on his own. So h3 will prevent knight g4 straight away, though, and then queen h4, bishop a6. And in this position, two moves are by far the most popular, rook b1 and rook d1. Both these moves have been played hundreds of times. There's a move here that's been played about 30 times, and it's bishop 2e3, and that is what Duda plays in this game. It does not prevent Black's very clear idea that he has been very obviously preparing with moves like b5 and a5, right? Like I just told you, he wants to play like this. And so bishop e3 does not really prevent that move at all, and so it happens. Now we have bishop a6, takes, the bishop goes back, the pawn takes again, rook ad1, queen e7. You say, oh my god, Levy, this is totally insane. You're going too fast. Slow down. This is why I watch all the other recaps. I hate you. This is actually still theory. Memes aside, like, this has been played before. About, I don't know, 100 times, like maybe 30, 40, I don't know. But like, it's been played a ton. They're just following the prep. This kind of hangs out here. The material balance is that Black is up a pawn, but Black has a really dumb set of pieces in the middle, and White sort of wants to overrun them. Like in a perfect world, you know, White just kind of storms the middle, wins this pawn back, and has good pressure, bishop pair, more space. But Black relies on, you know, dynamics. So bishop c5 is a very interesting move. You can't take because check, and I win the queen, and so the rook is actually lost. And all of this has been played before, and in this position, there has only ever been one move played. Only ever. One. And that move is c5. That's been played about 12 times. And the point of c5 is that if White goes here, then Black glues the bishop on d4. This is what Black wants. They want to defend the pawn, guard the bishop, king moves out of the way, and chess gets played. And that is why absolutely every human in history has played the move c5 here. But Ali Reza plays a new move. He plays the move g5. Now, let me tell you something. If you think for a long time in a position where 100% of the time people have played a certain way, that move is probably bad. That move is preventing f4, right? So White cannot play f4 because three things in Black's position control the f4 square. So that doesn't work. So now Jan Krzysztof needs a new plan. So Jan Krzysztof plays the move f4. And this is what I mean. If Black just spent a lot of time in a position where only one thing has been played and he does something differently, it's either really good or really bad. And it's really bad because after takes, and you grab this pawn, you lose this. And yeah, I mean, Black can try to, you know, blockade the e-pawn and whatnot, but the king for White will slide out of the way when attacked. And the g-file will just, all right, it'll be an assault down the g-file. Materially speaking, it's a knight and a pawn for Black and a rook for White. It's only a 1-point separation, but this king is quite weak. It's a pretty complicated position, however. So let's see what happens. All right, so Duda plays rook d3, potentially wants to double. That's guarded. Maybe he's going down to g3, right? Queen to e7, rook f2. So just rook f2, I think, was actually unnecessary. I think sliding the king out of the way here was very decent. Queen g2, rook g1, etc. But he plays rook f2. A couple moves later, however, he did not miss his opportunity again. He played king h1. The thing is, what does black do? You know, you look at this position, you go, what does black play? Like, black has every piece on every necessary square. Every piece is doing a good job. And then what? Like, both kings moved out of the way, but white has a clear plan, right? What is black's clear plan? Like, and Alireza tries to find one, right? I mean, he tries to create counterplay down the queen side on the only open file that's available to black, but white covers that with bishop to a2. Everything in the white position is defended, and white just needs a couple more moves to sort of unravel this defense and break through. Black plays knight back to e8, and by the late 30s, the late 30th move, I should say, Duda built up an advantage that was very sizable, like in the +2s, all right? Maybe he could have done something slightly differently here, like maybe in this position, even rook f2 actually was completely reasonable. He could have maybe a little bit earlier done something slightly differently than the way he played it in this game after rook b8. But to be honest with you, like, seemed like he was doing everything correct, right? Here, for example, he could have maybe offered a rook trade. You understand what I'm saying? Maybe he could have offered a rook trade, but he could have maybe played queen d2, targeting a5. I mean, it's an equal game, so there's no reason not to go trying to grab a pawn, right? But he does it this way, and he allows a trade of queens. And in this position, black wants to go knight g3, right? That's black's idea, and then bring the rook down to b2. So the move rook fg2 screams like a very natural move, right? But Duda takes the pawn. And after he takes the pawn, the knight comes to g3, and the rook is going to b2, and I don't understand what's going on at all. And when it all settles, Alireza's just up a pawn in an opposite colored bishop endgame. But the players agree to a draw. That's it. The game ends right here. The game literally just ends. They just draw this game. Now, this is a draw because you have to know a little bit about opposite colored bishops, but white will, play with an active king. So white will take center stage with as powerful of a king as possible, trying to walk over here. Black might stop that from happening. White will put the pawn on the a file, right? Sorry, not on the a file, on the 4th rank. So now the bishop cannot touch the pawn. If the king ever finds its way here, this bishop will defend the pawn from a distance, and there's no way through. You blockade this pawn on the light squares. These pawns obviously will cancel each other out. It's just a draw. So Duda made a mistake, I guess, first when he allowed the queen to go to g6 and trade itself, but also not playing rook fg2. But even a little bit further back, again, like, he shouldn't have allowed Alireza to kind of keep that rook there. Like, maybe he should have played rook b3. Probably thought that rook d8 was a thing, but then there is queen g4 with checkmate threats, and if black tries to parry, there is queen g7, right, blocked. So, like, chess would have had to be played after the move rook b3. So, he doesn't do that, misses his advantage, despite really stellar opening preparation, and this game ends in a draw. The next game I have for you is the game between Rapport and Caruana. Caruana's had a rough second half of the event. He's going to be looking to win a couple of games, maybe try to secure the second place position. Yeah, unfortunately, Rapport is going to try to spoil that. And actually, we have a Berlin. Now, I think if this happened, this didn't happen, but if it did happen, I think we would have seen this line with a4. I actually think that Fabiano offered a draw with the move knight f6. Now, I could be completely wrong, but there was a reason that Caruana played this against Hikaru, right? And then played his whole line with knight f6, castles, knight e4, etc., rook e1, this whole line, or I think d4 is played. Yeah, I think instead of rook e1, it's d4, but yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, he plays the Berlin. And Rapport's like, no, actually, I don't want to draw. I won't play on. We've seen the anti-Berlin a lot, but in this event, we have seen everything under the sun. We have seen captures, we've seen bishop g5, we've seen knight d2, we've seen castles, and we've seen c3. But not a lot of people are playing the main line of bishop c6, dc6. Now, there is a little bit of a subtlety here. Castles is the overwhelming main line here. You might as well castle. But Report plays h3. Now, what's funny is that Hikaru played this against Magnus Carlsen in 2020. If you were lucky enough to catch the earliest wave of online chess before the Queen's Gambit, you might remember the Hikaru Magnus Carlsen final that was played over a week-long period. I did commentary on that event, and their Armageddon game, the last game of the last match, it was tied all the way down, went like this. This was exactly how that game went. It ended in a win for Magnus, even though it was a drawn position at the end because of the Armageddon rules. And in this game, Report chooses to play knight b3, bishop b6, and knight g5. This has only ever been seen in one game, this approach, and that game was Sam Sevian versus Temur Rajabov, a name you might recognize, in 2015 at the World Cup. And no, some of you ask, do you have these games in your memory? No, obviously not, all right? And if people did, they would be lying, all right? Unless they're Rajabov or Sevian or the top 15 players. Anybody else is lying to you. No, of course I didn't know that game happened. I just looked in the database and I relayed that information to you as a fun fact for the recap. I do my research, you know what I mean? So, you know, this position is very interesting because the structure is so fluid. And Fabiano kicks out Report's knight, moves his knight to c5 to get it on the e6 square. Both guys reroute their knights. And now it's kind of a question of who's going to castle where. It's like a chicken or the egg, you know? Who's going to go where? Who comes first that way? Who comes first this way? What is White going to do in terms of his pawn breaks? Will he attack the middle? White plays h4. So this is very clear that Report will not be playing short castle. It also is probably an indication to Fabiano not to castle short because he will probably be attacked. And so Fabi plays a very interesting move. He plays a6. And this is kind of intending to slide the bishop out of the way. And if you take the bishop and try to go get the pawn, I will go c5 or even b5 and get a legendary... Is this a diamond? Is that a pawn diamond? It's not really a diamond. I guess it's a diamond. It's more like a... I don't know. Anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, h5. I mean, Report, not developing anything. You know what I mean? Just h4, h5, middle of the game, no problem. Long castles, now we have this trade. And a couple of moves later, Report also decides, you know what? I think I've pushed too many pawns. I'm going to castle long. Report is better. Report has an advantage here because the bishop is better than the knight. And I think in terms of the future pawn play, it's White who is going to push the pace. Black is not really going to do this. He might, but I think by the time White plays f4, Black is going to be on the defensive. So Queen f7, here comes f4, takes. And for the life of me, I do not understand why Report did not take with the pawn here. I'm assuming it has something to do with f5, right? And maybe, you don't want to take this because if you trade too much, you don't have advantage. Black puts the rooks exactly where you have them. The bishop and the knight cancel out. But you can keep the tension. You know, you don't have to trade. You don't have to trade. Maybe the king moves out of the way. Maybe White plays for e5. Maybe not. Maybe White just slowly builds up behind the pawns. But visually, this looks kind of nice. I like the pawns together. I like potential prospects of moving forward like this. But Report took with the bishop. And it's not like it loses the game, by no means, but the pawns are not together. You know what I mean? The pawns are split. The g-pawn is sort of waiting for this exchange to happen. But that's not going to happen, right? Black is just going to play queen f6. It might happen at some point, but I'm just going to keep building up my defenses behind it. Rook f2, queen slides out of the way. Ideas of opening up the position. Also ideas of maybe fighting back with g5. You're not careful, I'm going to hit you with g5 at some point. Report chases the rook moves. There is no bishop g5, by the way. And again, this is also a very appetizing looking move, but it's just really hard to defend this. Remember, in the other example, there was a pawn here. I can't just teleport the pawn. Okay, so queen h4, and you know, Black is really looks like Black is struggling to breathe here a little bit. Everything is pinned to everything else. But after pawn takes f5, there's a very well-timed move here, and it's this move g5. And I just mentioned it to you that this was going to happen at some point because Black supports it really well. This is hanging now, and that is under attack. What does White do? Queen e4, because the knight will also fall. So great defense by Caruana. I mean, he dealt with all the incoming pressure correctly, and Report, in my opinion, did not transform the position in the best way. So he unfortunately has to settle for this heavy piece endgame. where, and by the way, you might wonder, what heavy piece endgame? Isn't black just up a rook? Yes, but white has something that can turn into a rook, which is a pawn. And that pawn cannot be stopped. So he's going to have to sacrifice something. You know, he could go back to f8 like this, but then he would lose the endgame because h7 would fall. Fabiano, unfortunately, for the spectators, does not blunder the game in one move. I know we would all, you know, enjoy watching the players throw, but that doesn't happen. Queens guard each other here, so we have takes, queen g3. The pawns cancel out. Although the way Report chooses to play this, I don't know why he likes to do it this way. He likes to take the hardest road, and I don't mean Kevin Durant style, which would be sarcastic. You know, queen g6, and Report just goes down a pawn here. Like, he just, in all the complications, he ends up losing his pawn. And I guess it was because of low time. He did not have to do that. He did not have to play this so passively. I think here he could have played rook e1. And you'll notice that in the game, black played h6, defended his pawn, and then hunted this pawn, and then won the h-pawn. Yeah, rook e1, and like black is like not ever winning this, because there's queen h8, rook c2, this is defended, and now there's rook e8. And I mean, if anybody's getting mated, it's the black king, okay? Report did not have to lose his pawn, but, you know, he likes to choose the hardest road. Maybe he's a Buddhist. Maybe he likes to suffer to reach nirvana, but, or that's how I vaguely remember it. You know, black has the pass pawn here, but this is very difficult to win because the rook cannot move, and if the rook moves this way, the king gets out of the way, and the rook will end up going behind the pawn. So, as like seemingly winnable as this endgame is, it's really difficult to win. Rook in 3 versus rook in 2 is a draw. For them, they can do it with their eyes closed, hands tied behind their back. Yeah, I don't know, under duress. I mean, they're very good at this stuff, and this is simply equal. Like, if the black rook moves down here, and, you know, white plays king a2, h4, king b2, h3, king a2, h2, king b2, right? The whole thing, all the way down. And black tries to begin walking over to start harassing you. What's going to happen here is if white plays something like c4, for example, takes, and the king keeps going, you know? And the king keeps going. And the king keeps going, and the king starts chasing. It's nothing. By the time the king goes all the way down here, I'm going to go all the way down there. And you say, well, Levy, that's real simple. King g5. And then I'm going to guard the pawn. Look. Right? Like all this. Yeah, then I start checking you. So I'll force you to move. And I mean, like, the pawn, yeah, we went very far into the future. The other thing is, with ideas like rook h1, I don't have to go king a2, king b2. So just like one more thing, even if we get all the way down there and black finds a way to create winning chances, I also just played like 10 really stupid moves in a row. Like the white king could actually walk. He doesn't have to stay in the corner. But that is the general gist of that endgame, particularly when there's no pawns on the board. In the endgame that I showed, I started taking a second look. I was like, maybe there's a way for this king to try to like walk over here, and this king must stay here, just for anybody confused, because if the king starts coming that way, there's this very famous trick. And rook takes pawn, there's a check. So just in case you're wondering why the king kind of has to stay in this corner, king can also not go up because it can be checked. So the king has to stay here, only on those two squares, a2, b2. But these pawns can trade off. You know, for example, like if something like this happens, for example, this is just an easy draw. This is just the easy draw. So white would, you know, get to an endgame where there's nothing to do. They end up drawing in a slightly different way, but game ends in a draw because even though black can push the pawn the entire length of the board, nothing's going to happen. And that brings me to my final game of the day, and this is a huge game. If Ding Liren wins this game, he is now only 1 point behind Nepo with 2 rounds to go, okay? Ding Liren plays a Nimso Indian, allows the Nimso Indian, rather. Rajabov is the one who plays the Nimso, and he goes for a variation which is extremely forcing nowadays. It's been seen quite a bit recently. Historically, white will play knight f3 here, c5. Castles is an ultra popular classical main line. But we have d5 and takes and a3. We've been seeing this a lot. And the idea is that when black goes here and black plays c6, white will play knight e2, boop, 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 and go for checkmate. And many games go like that. You know, if black tries to, you know, this is just be kind of provocative here. Like, this is sort of what happens. b5, knight d7, c5, c4, and it's just a bar fight, okay? And that's probably what Ding Liren is trying to accomplish. But Rajabov plays a move that's only ever been played twice. He plays knight a6. Knight a6 looks absurd. That move looks like it's an absurd move. Where's the knight going? It can't go anywhere. What's the knight trying to do? Well, black is trying to play c5. That is the idea. But black is trying to do it in a way that he provokes white into damaging his pawns. Black is sort of like red flagging the bull, you know? He's got the red flag. He's like, come and damage my structure, okay? If you really want to. Knight e2, and here comes c5. And now it looks really appetizing, because if you do this and knight c5 happens, that's really unpleasant. You just gave black everything. That bishop will perish. You will not have an attack, right? So knight e2 is actually, I think, already the incorrect approach. I think it's already time either for white to just play b4, preventing c5 completely, or just play knight f3. I mean, you have to, like, black played a very unorthodox way. You're not going to go get that typical attack that you normally get in the other structure. Knight e2 is trying to play for all this, but after c5, Ding Liren does, in fact, call the bluff on that pawn structure and says, you know what, Timur? This looks really bad. I don't like your isolated pawn. I don't like your doubled A pawns. Black says, actually, my doubled A pawns are really good because not only do I get this open file, I also have the possibility in the future to play a5, attacking your pawn on b4, or a5 and getting this monster diagonal for my bishop. So b4 is what Ding chooses, but now this plays directly into Timur's plans, right? He's immediately like, nah, you can't do that. I'm using my weakest link aggressively against you. It's still not too late for white to play like knight b5 and try to get the bishop, but Ding wants to play this for a win, all right? He saw the Hikaru game. He's probably a little bit like, what the? He didn't even try to beat him. All right, now I gotta win. I gotta win no matter what, right? I gotta catch you on. And now we have b5, but now the second pawn. There's two pawns. It's like a very rare case where doubled pawns on the side of the board are actually useful. Look at this. This is absurd, right? So h3, bishop d7, takes, and we have the following position. Now, again, it's not too late for Ding to castle and still kind of try to play this a bit more normally. The problem is that, well, you're going to see what the problem is. First of all, knight takes d5 looks like a free pawn. It's not really a free pawn, because after a move like queen b8, who guards the bishop? You say, oh, I just go back to d2. Yeah, but then here comes the other rook. And black is just, I mean, this is not what you want. You don't want to be involved in this. You just don't. So Ding plays rook d2, but this is too slow. And if you thought that was too slow, and you're like, well, he should now castle. Yeah, the problem is he can't. Ding waited too long, and the longer that he waited, the stronger black's counterplay became. He could stop one attack, but it allows another. He can stop that attack, but here comes the knight on e3. So queen c8 prevents Ding from castling, which is bad news. So Ding plays f3, trying to go for king f2. I mean, this does not look like the average rating of the game is like 2780. I mean, right? Like, so in trying to play for a win, Ding is taking massive risks. Massive. I mean, oh, like insane risk. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes to forcefully try to get a win, you got to suffer in a worse position just so you have some dynamics. But queen b8 and, now that I stopped taking my pressure on h3, right, because you're not going to castle, now I'm not letting anything go over there. And so Ding plays queen c1, and yeah, Timur here took off his sports coat, rolled up his sleeve, and just threw a punch straight at Ding Liren's face. Yeah, Ding, like, you know, absorbed the contact, called the arbiter, all the clocks got paused. You know, they had to look at the rule book, what happens when another player, like, I mean, I'm just kidding, but yeah, Rajabov plays rook takes e3, and that is a brutal move. Sometimes moves like this happen when only a king guards something, like certain moves that don't look possible. The point is, if you take bishop c5 check, and you either go here and just get blasted like down the e file, or you do what Ding did in this game and basically absorb the loss of this e3 pawn and try to cover up your king. But yeah, it's real bad because the attack continues and bishop f4. I mean, the game is just over. And Ding resigned on the 27th move. It took 26 moves for Rajabov to, I mean, this was demolition. He just completely took his soul in this game. And You know, the candidates this year have had some completely ridiculous games, and we are adding this to the list. Like, under this insane pressure, we are watching some of the best players in the world do some completely unbelievable things. And yeah, I mean, Ding knew that he had to win this game. His window of time is running out. He took a huge risk with the opening he was playing. Rajabov responded with just a very brilliantly provocative piece with knight a6, and Ding fell for every trap, it seemed like, in this opening. So a great game from Rajabov, and just a tough one from Ding. And folks, after 12 rounds of the candidates, Jan Nepomniachtchi has a 2-point lead, which means that if he makes one draw in the next 2 games, he wins the event. Are the candidates over? I don't know. But there is a massive battle for second place. Hikaru and Ding have 6.5, and Rajabov and Caruana have 6. And it's so weird because for the first time in history, second place might matter at the candidates. But does it really? Like, do you think Magnus is sitting off in his apartment somewhere in Oslo, Norway, and just laughing because he knows that he's going to defend the world championship? He's just like, everyone's making a big deal out of this second place prize. Does it really matter? Really? And the craziest thing is, the second place spot is not even determined with a playoff. That's not in the rules because this has never happened before, okay? It's not in the rules to do that. It's only for first place that there's a playoff. So I don't know what's going on, folks. I don't know. I look forward to reading your comments. I'll see you for round number 13. Get out of here.